In June of 2023, a story of a family who called the police from their Las Vegas home gained media attention. In this call, it was the teenage son Angel who was audibly upset because they had just witnessed two aliens around 10 feet tall in their backyard and that they were looking to enter their house and even trying to start up their landscaping equipment. The creatures were described by the family as having large eyes and a large mouth, greenish-gray oily skin, and caused the son to paralyze with fear. The alien creature was described by the father as having antenna-like ears that were displaying light, while the son mentioned a strange single light by its head. Lastly, the son also added that the creature was making loud breathing sounds. Police arrived and they explained to the family that one of the officers had just captured strange light falling from the sky on his police cam. The police found nothing in the backyard, but a video released to the public of a strange bluish light was indeed filmed by one of the officers' cameras. This story was featured on many local news channels as well as national and cable media programs. I viewed this from a news clip on YouTube and it immediately sparked my curiosity, although I didn't immediately research further into it. A month or so goes by and I see a video posted in my YouTube feed entitled Las Vegas Backyard Alien Video. This video was posted by the son who called the police. Before watching, I decided to look at some of the comments, and many were very sarcastic and critical of the video, stating that there's no aliens to see. I watched the 2-minute video, and I could see very strange images towards the last half, while it zoomed in on a pickup truck and landscape equipment. The images were very blurry or hazy. You were forced to use the YouTube website zoom-in feature to further see the details around the equipment. I could see a few figures, but I couldn't pinpoint what anything was and basically dismissed the video for a few weeks. The big turning point was when a specific YouTube short popped up in one of my random search results showing an outline of two zoomed-in entities. One appearing to be kneeling down and resting its elbow, and another standing with a long extended torso. I watched the original video for these details, and sure enough, there were absolutely these creatures appearing insect-like with definite eyes and pincher-like mouths. These figures and background environment, as mentioned before, were oddly covered in an invisibility cloak akin to the Predator in the movie franchise of the same name. This made it difficult to determine all of the creatures' definite details from the environment, but you could approximate their basic features. It definitely freaked me out, but the odd sensor-like blur gave me some solace, convincing me this is likely just a hoax with not too much going on. I kept telling myself this is probably fake. After all, it's probably just intentionally blurred by one of the family members or their friends post-filming to hide details that would be dead giveaways to being a costume or some kind of prop. However, I kept telling myself, if this is fake, why would police have footage of a strange light falling from the sky right around the time this occurred? It really would be a strange coincidence if this was just a meteor falling right at the same time as well. I noticed a popular reoccurring comment for this story was that the US government and the media orchestrated a possible Project Bluebeam event. Could the government have coordinated in an elaborate paranormal hoax with the police and the locals to further create hysteria with all of the recent military admittance of UAP activity they have experienced throughout the years? I kept thinking if these two events were staged, why would they do such a poor job making the prop aliens visible? There's definitely something in the backyard, but it seems like only a small percentage of the viewers could see anything. At this point, I decided to just watch the video a few times, but look at other details in the environment around the alleged two entities. Not only this, but play at 25% speed to take in everything filmed by the fast-moving camera. I did this, and after a few viewings, my jaw almost immediately hit the floor. Now, in addition to the two entities, I noticed multiple blurred but mantis-like creatures lined up in the background. Inside the pickup, in the wheel wells, multiple ones in the truck bed, multiple small entities behind the truck bed, and other giant creatures high up in the air in the very back. I started paying closer attention to the first half of the video, and I could see movement behind the fence, the gate, and even some suspicious visual activity around the family before they opened the gate. After every subsequent viewing, the more disturbing details I would notice. At this point, I started to freak out again since all of the craziness seemed incredibly complex, but only for a small few who would overanalyze the video for hours as I did. I put in enough hours over the course of a few weeks, equivalent to a couple of 8-hour work days. I decided to stop watching the video as there were always new details to find with every rewatch, but all I could determine is the video looked incredibly elaborate. It was going to be very difficult to find the smoking gun that this could or could not be a hoax. My verdict, inconclusive. Fast forward and it's mid-January of 2024. A popular UFOologist named Jeremy Corbell posts a new video entitled The Jellyfish UAP. The video is of a UAP with what appears to be tentacles from the base of the object. This video takes place at a U.S. military installation in Iraq in the nighttime in October 2018. The video shows the object flying at a very fast speed and can only be detected by a military thermal cam. Naturally, this sparked my interest, so I zoomed in on the object, turned the video to 25%, and decided to start adjusting the video to the highest quality resolution possible to make out the subtle details. Like the Vegas video, I ended up watching the UAP repeatedly, noticing new characteristics of the UAP each time. I determined that the object looked like two large-headed humanoid creatures with their heads bumped together. But once I noticed that on top and bottom of these creatures were countless entities constantly morphing and cycling through what appears to be two portal locations, I finally had my freakout moment again. Batches of mantis and ant creatures, long-necked ET-like creatures, typical gray aliens from abduction stories, and even large dragon-like creatures were constantly appearing or morphing into new ones. I saw mantis and long-toothed creatures and realized they looked remarkably like those seen in the Vegas video. This really creeped me out, and it then dawned upon me that these entities could very well be the same ones, or at least the same species of creatures seen in the creepy Vegas backyard video. The two videos may have a connection. My final conclusion was that the bottom torso and legs of the two humanoid creatures, along with the bottom morphing creatures, were only giving the UAP the appearance of tentacles, but were not actually tentacles. I also determined that the main structure of the jellyfish UAP was best described as two robed, large-headed humanoids riding on a strange contraption resembling a pogo stick with a sidecar, as ridiculous as it sounds. I was able to make this determination because they are the only two objects within the proximity of the UAP that stay consistent throughout, only having minor shape changes here and there. But why are these strange creatures constantly cycling and morphing into different creatures? At this point, I reached a temporary plateau of any more clues that linked this to the Vegas video. So just for the hell of it, I decided to look at the background details around the UAP. Nothing really stood out, and all I really saw was desert terrain with buildings, barriers, some people, and dogs hanging out. This was all until I decided to zoom in. This moment literally gave me chills and goosebumps. From an extreme close-up, the landscape transformed from Earth to a disturbing alternate dimension, packed with mantis-like creatures, greys, ETs, large dragon creatures, and even giant ants, to name a few. Some walls of the base even showed what appeared to be murals of these creatures. We were being told that the military base was continuously haunted and spied on by the same UAP for years, when the reality I uncovered was that it was actually invaded, seized, conquered by this mixed array of insects, dragons, and other creatures of unknown origin, and our military may not even know it. On the nightmarish scenes I was somehow witnessing with my very eyes, it wasn't an unreasonable initial conclusion. However, I would soon discover that I wasn't actually witnessing an alien invasion, but a phenomenon even more incredible and earth-shattering that it will undoubtedly alter everything we understand about Earth, our universe, and our very existence. All of this made me very disturbed and wanting answers, and there really wasn't anywhere to turn to until several YouTubers started posting pre-existing videos and compilations that show UAP similar to the jellyfish-style UAP in Iraq. All of the videos were excellent footage of these very small UAPs that all appear to be made up of multiple smaller entities. The entities making up the UAP, however, didn't appear to look like the two-headed humanoids except for a specific video filmed in Tijuana, Mexico in 2013. One of the most immediate details that I noticed in most of these videos were the high concentrations of creatures similar to those seen in the Las Vegas and jellyfish UAP video. When a jellyfish-style UAP is present, this specific UAP seemed to have a Pied Piper-like effect and draw in a large crowd of its friends. After all, the jellyfish video has a literal invasion of them around and in the landscape, and the Las Vegas video may have shown a similar UAP on the police cam prior to the horde in the family's backyard appearing. Around this time, I decided to revisit the Las Vegas video again, but this time I was able to find a video with 4K quality so I could really get to look at all of the small details. I started freaking out as not only were there countless amounts of creatures blending in and moving around the family outside of the fence, there were all kinds of additional creatures in front of other creatures in a transparent fashion, and there were even creatures the size of crickets hanging out around the trees, marching on the ground, and you can even make out giant dragon and elephant-like creatures in the far back that seem to morph into the mantis-like creatures. At this point, I realized there is no way this was faked. The level of detail was horrifying. Not only that, the creatures matched the jellyfish video, which was filled with an absolutely staggering amount of detail of creatures that don't seem possible for two videos that barely anyone would notice while viewing. I was really questioning my sanity. Both videos are very creepy and ominous to the few of those who have the patience to calmly comb through and dissect the frames, but to see a sight consisting of endless hordes of insect humanoids is just too absurd to even trust your vision. That same evening, on January 20th, I was staring at the ceiling before bed, and a random afterimage showing the insect-like creatures kept lingering in white and yellow outlines in my field of vision. This really freaked me out, and I took a few steps back and told myself to just chill out and have a good night's rest. The next day, January 21st, I woke up and figured I was just tired from overanalyzing the video's landscape the night before. So I watched the landscape on the jellyfish UAP video zoomed in, and to my awful surprise, it was absolutely the same doomsday scene I had seen the night before. The floating afterimage, however, was gone, or at the very least hardly noticeable in my field of vision. That evening was when everything I knew about our existence changed. I was sitting on my couch relaxing before I went to bed, and for whatever reason I looked up at the skylight because something oddly caught my eye, as well as on the floor below. I walked up into the dark skylight lit up by our lamps, and then I saw a large dragon-like creature staring me down with some movement, but somewhat idle in place. Around the entity, there were multiple others that were difficult to distinguish, but I could identify mantis and insect-like creatures that looked remarkably like those in the Las Vegas and jellyfish video. I looked at the reflection in the skylight on the ground, and I could even see more creatures. They appear as a very subtle projection-like effect, and they are all moving a little in place. Many of the floor creatures also seem to strangely blend in with the environment, even becoming the shape of the furniture, plants, toys, and fish tank. The one houseplant even seemed to resemble the insect creature in the Vegas video, kneeling and resting its head on its hand. I got out my camera phone, and sure enough, I was able to see these same anomalies. I looked carefully around my home, and I could see them with my bare eyes. I could even see them everywhere using my camera phone in various different lighting. All of this was real.